The vast alien landscape stretched out before him, its towering trees casting long shadows across the cracked earth. A soft breeze rustled through the strange, luminous leaves of the plants, creating an eerie yet soothing symphony of whispers. Even in this alien world, there was an overwhelming beauty to the place, a sense of something ancient, something larger than life. The man, a human explorer, stood silently, taking in the scene, his heart racing with anticipation and awe. It had been days since the crash. His ship, a state-of-the-art exploration vessel, had been severely damaged when they passed too close to a gravitational anomaly. The ship had gone off course, spiraling toward the surface of this uncharted planet. Now alone, far from any known civilization, he was left to fend for himself. His name was Commander Cale Harrington, a skilled and experienced explorer. He had been part of a team sent to explore the outer reaches of the galaxy, but after the crash, he found himself stranded. His fellow crew members were lost in the wreckage, and he had no way of contacting their home base for rescue. With no other options available, Cale had set out on foot, hoping to find something, anything, that would give him a chance to survive. He had already found strange creatures and landscapes unlike anything he had ever seen. Some were beautiful, others terrifying. But it was all part of the job. The unknown was both Cale's duty and his passion. He had spent years training for this, preparing for the moment when he would step into the unknown. Yet, despite his preparedness, nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. As he ventured deeper into the planet's vast wilderness, Cale's senses heightened. He felt the familiar hum of the planet beneath his feet, its deep vibrations syncing with his heartbeat. There was something about this place that made him uneasy, yet he couldn't shake the sense of discovery that pushed him forward. He pushed through the thick underbrush, his steps slow but steady. His boots crunched the dry leaves and twigs beneath him, and his hand gripped the energy rifle slung across his back, just in case. The air was cool but thick with humidity. Above, the sky was a strange shade of violet, unlike anything he'd ever seen, as if the sun itself had a different hue here. Cale paused, wiping the sweat from his brow as he reached a clearing. Before him stood a massive structure, an ancient building of stone and crystal overgrown with vines. Its design was unlike anything he had seen before. The architecture was both primitive and advanced, with strange symbols etched into the stone. The crystals embedded in the structure pulsed with a soft, glowing light, casting an ethereal glow across the clearing. He took a cautious step forward, his curiosity piqued. There was no sign of life around, but something told him that he wasn't alone. The air felt charged, as if the structure itself was alive, breathing with the planet. Cale's instincts told him to be careful, but his desire to learn more, to uncover the secrets of this ancient civilization, was stronger than his caution. He approached the stone steps leading up to the entrance, each step echoing in the silence. As he ascended, the glow from the crystals grew brighter, bathing him in an almost otherworldly light. When he reached the top, Cale took a deep breath and pushed open the massive stone doors. The interior of the structure was vast, with high ceilings adorned with intricate carvings and murals depicting scenes of strange, winged creatures. The walls were lined with what appeared to be ancient technology, devices whose purpose he could not fathom. At the center of the room stood an enormous throne, carved from a single piece of gleaming black stone. It was the throne of a ruler, a king or queen, Cale thought. But there was something about it that felt wrong, as if it had been waiting for something, or someone, for a very long time. As he stepped closer, his eyes were drawn to a figure standing at the base of the throne. It was unlike any being Cale had ever seen before. The creature was tall, its form humanoid but with features that were distinctly alien, smooth, almost translucent skin that shimmered in the dim light, and eyes that were vast and black, as if they could see into the very depths of his soul. The figure's gaze was fixed on him, unblinking, and for a moment, Cale froze. His mind raced, trying to process what he was seeing. Was this a living being, or some kind of statue, an ancient artifact left behind by a forgotten civilization? The figure's silence was deafening, and Cale's heart began to pound in his chest. He stepped forward cautiously. "Hello," he called out, his voice shaky despite his best efforts to remain calm. "Is anyone here?" But the figure did not respond. Instead, it slowly began to move, its graceful movements fluid and effortless. It stepped forward from the throne, its bare feet making no sound on the cold stone floor. Kale's mind screamed for him to run, to flee from whatever this thing was, but his body betrayed him, staying rooted to the spot. And then, in a moment that would haunt him forever, the alien queen, if that's what she was, knelt before him. Her knees hit the floor with a soft, almost reverent thud. Kale blinked, unsure if his mind was playing tricks on him. The alien queen, a being of unimaginable power, was kneeling before him. Her eyes, dark as the void, locked onto his, and in that moment Kale felt a strange, powerful connection. There was something ancient in her gaze, something that whispered of forgotten histories and lost empires. The room seemed to pulse with energy, and Kale's pulse quickened. His mind raced. Why was she kneeling? Was this an act of submission, or was it something else? He had heard of alien species worshipping higher beings, but this didn't feel like that. The queen was not in awe of him. Kale could sense that. No, it was more as if she was acknowledging something he couldn't understand. Kale opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he felt an overwhelming wave of emotion, an immense respect, fear, and curiosity all mingled together. His heart thudded in his chest, and he wondered if this was the beginning of something far bigger than himself. The silence in the room stretched on, the alien queen still kneeling before him. Her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made him feel like he was standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure of what lay beyond. He could not explain it, but deep down he knew that this moment, this strange encounter, was only the beginning, and that was when he heard her voice, soft like a whisper in his mind. "You have returned." Kale's breath caught in his throat. Returned. He had no idea what she meant, but the weight of her words settled on him like a heavy cloak. Whatever had just happened, whatever had just begun, it was more than a simple meeting between two beings from different worlds. It was a meeting of destinies. The queen raised her head slightly, her gaze still fixed on him. She opened her mouth again, and this time her voice was clearer, stronger, but still laced with the same eerie, otherworldly quality. "I kneel not before a stranger, but before a legacy long forgotten. You are the one who will awaken what was lost." Kale stood motionless, unable to comprehend the meaning of the words the alien queen had just spoken. His mind raced, trying to find any logical explanation for what was happening, but nothing seemed to fit. Her words lingered in the air, heavy with an ancient power he couldn't grasp. "You are the one who will awaken what was lost." The queen's eyes, as vast and dark as the void of space itself, never left his face. She wasn't merely looking at him. She was searching him as though probing deep within, reading his very soul. Her gaze sent a chill down his spine, but there was something else too. A deep connection, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Kale opened his mouth, but his voice faltered. He had so many questions. Who was she? What did she mean by a legacy long forgotten? Why had she knelt before him? Was he really the one to awaken something lost? These were questions he couldn't begin to answer. The alien queen, still kneeling before him, tilted her head slightly as if she understood his confusion. She then spoke again, but this time her voice was not just heard, it was felt. Her words seemed to resonate within his very bones, vibrating through him like an unseen force. "You do not remember, you are not yet whole." The weight of her words hit him harder than he expected. Not yet whole. He could feel his heart racing, the blood pounding in his ears as he tried to make sense of her cryptic statement. Had she sensed some weakness in him? Was there something about him, something buried deep inside, that was incomplete? He took a step backward, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon slung over his shoulder. Despite the queen's calm demeanor, he couldn't shake the feeling that danger was close. It was in the air, in the way her presence seemed to fill the room with an undeniable force. The queen's gaze softened, and for a moment, Kale saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't the cold, calculating stare of an alien ruler. Instead, there was a sadness there, a sorrow that seemed to span millennia. She slowly rose from her kneeling position, standing tall and graceful. For the first time since he had met her, she seemed vulnerable. "Long ago," she began, her voice low and measured, "there were those who walked among the stars, your people. They were known by many names, feared and respected across the galaxy. You were not always the humans you are now. You were something more, something ancient." Kale's mind struggled to process her words. His people had no such history, no cosmic empire, no galactic conquests. They were explorers, adventurers, trying to understand the universe. But the queen's words hinted at something far greater than he had ever known. "Your ancestors," she continued, "were not born in the way you think. They were created, molded by the hands of beings who saw in them a potential for greatness. They were meant to lead, to guide, to be the rulers of the stars. But something went wrong. The legacy of your people was hidden, sealed away, so that none could awaken it. Until now, Kale's head was spinning. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. What are you saying?" he managed to force out. "I'm just an explorer. I'm not some ancient ruler." The queen's lips curved into a faint smile, though there was no mirth in it. "You do not remember yet, but you will." Before Kale could respond, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. The walls of the stone structure trembled, and the air seemed to vibrate with energy. Kale instinctively dropped to a crouch, his hand on the grip of his rifle. The queen, however, stood tall, unfazed by the disturbance. A shadow flickered across the doorway, and the air grew thick with an unsettling presence. Kale's eyes darted toward the entrance of the chamber, his muscles tensing. Something was coming. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up and his pulse quickened. The queen's expression darkened. "They are here." Suddenly the ground split open with a deafening crack, and from the depths of the earth, monstrous creatures emerged. Their bodies were a grotesque fusion of insect and reptile, their eyes glowing with a sickly yellow light. They were massive, their limbs thick with muscle, their jaws lined with razor-sharp teeth. The creatures roared, their voices reverberating through the chamber. Kale's heart raced as he raised his weapon, his mind focused solely on survival. The queen's calm demeanor in the face of danger was unsettling, but he had no time to question it now. The creatures were closing in fast. "Stay close to me," the queen commanded, her voice suddenly firm and commanding. Kale didn't hesitate. He followed her, his rifle aimed at the approaching monsters. But before he could fire, the queen raised her hand and the creatures froze. Their bodies stiffened, as though caught in some invisible grip. A strange hum filled the air, and Kale watched in awe as the queen's power seemed to pulse through the room like an electric current. With a swift motion, she flicked her wrist, and the creatures were thrown back, crashing into the walls with bone-shattering force. Kale stood in stunned silence, watching as the queen effortlessly dealt with the threat. "They are not the true enemy," she said, her voice filled with a strange sorrow. "But they will not stop until they destroy everything." Kale's mind struggled to catch up. The creatures, what were they? And why did the queen seem so familiar with them? He glanced at the queen, her expression unreadable, and felt the weight of the situation crash down on him. "The true enemy," she repeated, "is the one who has been watching you. The one who knows who you are. They will stop at nothing to ensure that you never awaken the power within you." Kale's heart skipped a beat. Who was she talking about? Who could be so powerful that even the queen, a being of unimaginable strength, seemed afraid? Before he could ask, the ground shook again and the rumbling grew louder. The walls of the chamber began to crack, and dust fell from the ceiling in thick clouds. The queen turned to him, her eyes meeting his with a look of urgency. "Listen to me, human," she said, her voice more forceful than before. "You must find the key. You must awaken what has been buried for so long. Only then will you be able to stop them. Only then will you truly understand what you are." Kale opened his mouth to speak, but the words died on his lips. He didn't understand. He didn't know what she was asking of him. He was just a man, a simple explorer. But as he stood there facing the alien queen who had once knelt before him, something deep inside him stirred. A feeling he couldn't explain. It was as though a distant memory was beginning to resurface, buried beneath the surface of his mind. The rumbling grew louder and the queen turned to face the doorway. "We do not have much time." Kale didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. Whatever this was, it was far bigger than he could have imagined. The fate of this world, perhaps the fate of the galaxy, rested on his shoulders, and he had no choice but to follow the queen's lead. As the creatures began to stir again, the queen looked at Kale one last time, her gaze intense. "Your journey begins now, human," she said, her voice filled with both urgency and hope. "But it will not be an easy one." The chamber trembled once more, the deep rumblings echoing through the stone walls. Kale's grip tightened on his weapon, but he was still uncertain of what he was supposed to do. The creatures outside had been thrown back, but the queen's words lingered in his mind. "The true enemy is the one who has been watching you." As Kale glanced toward the door, the queen moved with purpose, her tall form gliding across the room with an eerie grace. She was no longer the calm, distant ruler he had first encountered. The urgency in her movements and her voice now made it clear that the situation was far more critical than he could have imagined. "Follow me," the Queen commanded, her tone sharp and unwavering. Kale didn't hesitate. There was no time for questions, no time to process everything that had happened. The world around him was shifting, and in that moment it felt as if destiny had pushed him into something far larger than he had ever signed up for. The fate of this planet, perhaps the galaxy itself, rested on his actions. The Queen led him through the crumbling halls of the ancient structure, her pace quickening as the ground continued to shake. Kale followed closely behind, his eyes scanning their surroundings. The walls seemed alive, pulsating with energy that he could feel deep within his chest. The entire place felt like a living organism, ancient and powerful, yet on the brink of collapse. They came to a large chamber at the heart of the structure. The room was vast, with a high ceiling supported by massive stone pillars. In the center of the chamber was a strange, glowing pedestal. The soft light emanating from it seemed to draw Kale in, its warmth inviting yet unsettling. "This is it," the Queen said, her voice low and filled with reverence. She gestured toward the pedestal. "This is the key. It is the heart of the legacy you have forgotten." Kale stepped forward, his heart racing. He didn't know what this key was or how it would help him, but the Queen's words held a weight he couldn't ignore. She had said he was the one to awaken what was lost. Was this the key to unlocking that power? Was this the key to understanding who he truly was? As he reached the pedestal, he hesitated. The light from the glowing object seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, almost as if it was calling to him. But there was something else too, a strange, deep feeling that this wasn't just any artifact. It was something far more significant, something tied directly to him. Kale extended his hand, unsure of what would happen when he touched the pedestal. The moment his fingers brushed against the surface, a surge of energy shot through him, making his body go rigid. The light flared bright, blinding him for a moment. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the light faded, leaving Kale standing before the pedestal, breathless and disoriented. He staggered back, his mind spinning. His thoughts were a chaotic blur, as if something inside him had just awoken, something long dormant. It was like a flood of memories, foreign and familiar, rushed into his consciousness all at once. He saw images of distant stars, powerful fleets, ancient battles, and a civilization unlike anything he had ever known. These weren't his memories, but they felt real. They felt like a part of him. The Queen watched him intently, her expression unchanged. "You have seen it now. The truth of your past, of your people." Kale's voice trembled as he spoke. What was that? What did I just see?" "That was the awakening," the Queen said. "The memories of your ancestors, the ones who once ruled the stars. The power that you possess, that you were born with, is more than just a birthright. It is a gift, one that was buried deep within you, sealed away to protect it from those who sought to destroy it." Kale felt a strange mix of awe and fear. "But why? Why didn't I know? Why didn't I remember any of this?" The Queen's eyes softened for a moment. "Your people were betrayed. Those who came before you were not like the humans you know now. They were beings of immense power, and they were feared throughout the galaxy. But that power made them enemies. They were betrayed by those who could not bear to see them rise to greatness. And so, their memory was erased. Your legacy was hidden, and you were born as one of the last remnants of that ancient bloodline." Kale shook his head, trying to make sense of it all. "This is insane. I'm just an explorer. I've never been a ruler. I don't even know how to do any of this." "You do not have to do it alone," the Queen said, her voice calm but firm. "But you must understand the responsibility that comes with your awakening. The power within you is not for personal gain. It is for the protection of the galaxy, for the restoration of what was lost." Kale's thoughts were racing. He had come here expecting an adventure, nothing more than a simple exploration. But now he was facing something far greater, a destiny he never could have imagined. His ancestors had once ruled the stars. But where were they now, and why had this power been sealed away? Before he could ask another question, the ground beneath them shook again. The rumbling was louder this time, and it seemed to come from all around them. The Queen's expression hardened. "They are here," she said, her voice laced with urgency. "The ones who have been watching you." Kale's heart skipped a beat. He turned to her, his mind still grappling with everything he had just learned. "What do we do now? What are they?" The Queen's eyes narrowed. "They are the ones who seek to keep your legacy buried. They are the ones who have been hunting you, and now they know you are here." The walls around them cracked, and Kale heard the sound of something moving. It wasn't the creatures they had fought earlier. It was something different, something far more terrifying. The air seemed to grow thicker, charged with an oppressive energy that made Kale's skin prickle. Suddenly, from the shadows, figures emerged. They were tall and imposing, their bodies covered in dark, metallic armor that seemed to shimmer with a dark energy. Their eyes glowed with an eerie yellow light, and their movements were precise, calculated. There were at least a dozen of them, and they moved with the confidence of hunters on a mission. Kale's grip on his weapon tightened, but the queen raised her hand, stopping him. "Do not fight them yet, you are not ready." Kale didn't understand. What was the point of all this? He had just awakened his power, but now the queen was telling him to hold back. His instincts screamed at him to fight, to defend himself, but something in the queen's eyes told him that rushing into battle would be a mistake. "These are the ones who betrayed your people," she said, her voice steady. "They are the keepers of the forgotten ancient enemies who have been hunting your bloodline for centuries, but they are not invincible. Together we will stop them. But first you must learn how to control the power within you." Kale swallowed hard. He didn't feel ready. He didn't feel capable, but the queen was right. There was no turning back now. The enemy was here, and he had no choice but to face them. The queen stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. She raised her hand, and the air around them seemed to ripple with energy. Kale felt a surge of warmth inside him, a power that resonated with the queen's movements. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he could feel it. His connection to this ancient force was growing stronger. "You are not alone," the queen said, turning to face him. "And you are not the same person who arrived here. You are something more now. The power within you is awakening, and it will protect you when the time comes." Kale nodded, his heart still pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure how he was going to face these enemies. But one thing was certain. He wasn't just an explorer anymore. He was something far greater. The legacy of his people, the legacy of the stars, was now his to bear. And as the keepers of the forgotten closed in, Kale knew that the real battle was only just beginning. The keepers of the forgotten advanced toward Kale and the queen, their steps deliberate and unhurried. Each one of them seemed to radiate a cold, menacing energy. Their dark armor gleamed, and their glowing yellow eyes locked onto the two figures before them. Kale could feel his heart race in his chest, his breath quickening as the realization of the danger they were in began to settle in. The queen stood tall and composed, unwavering in the face of this formidable threat. Kale, however, felt an overwhelming urge to act. His hand gripped his weapon tighter, his instincts screaming at him to do something, anything, to protect himself. But when he glanced at the queen, she gave him a quiet, steady look. She didn't seem afraid. Her calmness was unnerving, yet it gave Kale a strange sense of reassurance. "Do not act out of fear, Kale," the queen said, her voice low but filled with power. "You must be patient. The strength you seek is already within you. Let it come to you. Let it awaken fully." Kale nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. He had no idea how to control this power the queen spoke of, no understanding of what it meant to unlock the legacy of his ancestors. He was just a man, an explorer who had been thrown into a situation beyond his comprehension. Yet here he was, the key to something greater, a force that could save or destroy the galaxy. The keepers stopped just a few feet away. They towered over Kale and the queen, their expressions cold and unfeeling. The leader of the group, a tall figure with sharp, angular features, stepped forward. His voice was a low growl carrying an unnatural authority. "The time has come for you to answer for your existence, Kale Harrington," he said, his eyes fixed on Kale with an intensity that made the air around them grow colder. "You are a threat to our plans. The legacy you carry must remain buried. You will be eliminated." Kale's pulse quickened. There it was, the reason for all of this. The queen had been right. The keepers were hunting him, and they would stop at nothing to prevent him from fulfilling his destiny. But what was his destiny? What could he possibly do against these powerful, ancient beings who seemed to control everything? The queen stepped forward, placing herself between Kale and the keepers. "You do not understand, keeper," she said, her voice unwavering. "Kale Harrington is the last of the ancient bloodline. He is the one who will bring balance. You cannot stop him." The keeper's expression twisted into a grim smile. "The bloodline is a myth. You were all forgotten for a reason. The galaxy does not need rulers. It needs order. And we will restore it, no matter the cost." Kale watched the exchange, feeling a surge of anger rise within him. How could they speak of order when they were the ones threatening everything? His thoughts turned to the memories that had flooded his mind earlier, to the images of his ancestors. Warriors, rulers, leaders of a once great civilization. They hadn't been perfect, but they had been something far more than these keepers could ever understand. A voice echoed in his mind, soft but clear. "Remember who you are." The words struck him like a lightning bolt. It was the Queen's voice, but it was different. It wasn't just a command, it was a reminder. Kale closed his eyes for a moment, focusing on the feeling inside him. The energy that had awakened when he touched the pedestal earlier, it was still there, pulsing within him, waiting for him to claim it. He could feel it now. The power was not something separate from him, it was a part of him. It had always been a part of him, buried beneath layers of doubt and fear. But now, in this moment, he knew he could no longer hide from it. He had to accept it. He had to embrace it. With a deep breath, Kale opened his eyes, and as he did, the world around him seemed to shift. The chamber, the keepers, the queen, all of it became clearer, sharper, as if he could see beyond the surface of reality. His senses heightened, and the air itself seemed to crackle with energy. The power within him surged to the surface, flowing through his veins like liquid fire. The keepers faltered for a moment, their expressions shifting from confidence to uncertainty. They could sense the change in the air, the shift in Kale's presence. The leader of the keepers narrowed his eyes, his grip tightening around the weapon in his hand. "You think you can fight us?" he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You are nothing." But Kale stood tall, his gaze unwavering. He had seen what his ancestors were capable of. He had felt the power that had once ruled the stars. He wasn't nothing. He was a part of something much greater. With a sudden movement, Kale raised his hand, and the air around him seemed to bend. Energy, raw, unfiltered, burst from his palm, swirling in intricate patterns as it shot toward the keepers. The force of the blast sent the keepers flying backward, their bodies crashing into the stone walls with a deafening impact. The air was filled with the sound of energy crackling and the unmistakable roar of power unleashed. The queen watched, a small, approving smile on her face. "You have awoken, Kale," she said softly. "You are not just an explorer, you are a warrior, a ruler. And now you have the power to shape the future." Kale's heart raced as the power within him settled. He had done it. He had unlocked the strength of his ancestors, the legacy that had been hidden for so long. But he wasn't sure what came next. The keepers were not defeated yet. They would rise again. The leader of the keepers groaned as he struggled to his feet, his eyes blazing with fury. "You may have power, human," he spat, "but you cannot fight what is inevitable. The galaxy belongs to us." Kale stepped forward, his newfound power still pulsing through him. "No, it belongs to those who understand the true meaning of balance, of unity, and I will not let you destroy what was meant to be." The keepers hesitated, their confidence shaken but not broken. The leader raised his weapon, a dark, shimmering blade that seemed to hum with its own malevolent energy. "We will see if your power is enough," he snarled. Before Kale could react, the keeper lunged, his blade slashing through the air with incredible speed. But Kale was faster now. He moved with an ease and fluidity he hadn't known he possessed, his body reacting instinctively to the power surging within him. He dodged the strike and, with a flick of his wrist, sent a burst of energy toward the keeper. The blast hit the keeper square in the chest, sending him flying backward once more. The leader crashed into the ground, groaning in pain. His body was smoking from the blast, but he wasn't finished. He rose again, his eyes burning with rage. Kale knew this battle wasn't over. The keepers were relentless, and there would be more battles ahead. But for the first time since he had crash-landed on this alien world, Kale felt a sense of purpose, a sense of power. He wasn't just a man lost in space anymore. He was a part of something much greater, a force that could change the course of the galaxy. "You are not alone," the Queen's voice echoed in his mind once more. "Together we will restore what was lost." Kale nodded, his resolve hardening. The keepers could try to stop him, but they would fail. He had awakened the power of his ancestors, and with it, he would fight to protect the future of the galaxy. The Queen stepped forward, standing by Kale's side. "The path ahead is long, Kale. But you have taken the first step." And as the keepers regrouped, Kale knew that the true battle was just beginning. He was ready.